Have you ever wondered how a human mind can be completely rewritten without a single drop of blood spilled? How ordinary people can be turned into loyal servants, soldiers, or even assassins, simply by words, repetition, and fear? This is not science fiction. It's the chilling reality of brainwashing, a dark art perfected by regimes, cults, and manipulators who discovered that the most dangerous prison is invisible, and it lives inside your own mind. 1. The birth of brainwashing. The term brainwashing was born in the early 1950s during the height of the Cold War. American journalists began using the Chinese phrase, "shi now," literally wash brain, to describe how prisoners of war in Korea seemed to come back changed. Some had abandoned their old beliefs, confessed to crimes they never committed, or even spoke in favor of their captors. To the West, this was terrifying. The idea that communists had discovered a way to erase and rewrite human thought. But brainwashing didn't start in the 20th century. Long before the Cold War, empires, religious sects, and tyrants used similar methods: isolation, repetition, confession, and fear, to crush individuality and rebuild obedience. From medieval inquisitions to totalitarian regimes, the goal was always the same: destroy the old self and replace it with a new one that serves the master. 2. Early experiments in psychological control. During the 1950s and 60s, both East and West became obsessed with controlling the human mind. In the United States, this obsession gave birth to one of the most secretive projects in CIA history, MKUltra. Hidden behind layers of classified files, the project experimented with hypnosis, sensory deprivation, drugs like LSD, and psychological torture. Doctors and scientists were funded to test how far they could go, how deeply they could implant suggestions, alter memories, and make people obey commands they wouldn't normally follow. One participant later said, "They tried to see if a man could be made to betray himself and still believe it was his own idea." Meanwhile, in Soviet and Chinese prisons, thought reform programs were being used to break prisoners mentally. Detainees were forced to stay awake for days, repeat slogans until exhaustion, confess to imaginary crimes, and denounce their former beliefs. Step by step, resistance was replaced with compliance, and compliance with devotion. 3. The psychology behind brainwashing. At the core of brainwashing lies a simple truth: when you destroy a person's sense of identity, you can replace it with anything you want. Psychologists later identified the key stages of this transformation. Stage 1: breaking down the self. This stage involves isolation, humiliation, and confusion. The victim is separated from familiar people, routines, and information. Sleep deprivation, unpredictable punishment, and emotional manipulation create a sense of helplessness. Once the old identity collapses, the mind becomes desperate for structure. Stage 2: indoctrination. The manipulator provides new meaning. They offer belonging, answers, and purpose. New slogans replace old beliefs. Guilt and fear are redirected toward a new ideology, leader, or cause. The victim begins to repeat phrases, symbols, and rituals, not because they truly believe them, but because they offer safety. Stage 3: reinforcement. Every time the person conforms, they are rewarded with praise, acceptance, or relief from pain. Every time they resist, they are punished or isolated again. This constant feedback loop wires the brain to obey automatically. Eventually, the new beliefs feel natural, and the old self fades away. 4. Brainwashing in cults. Cults are perhaps the most visible example of modern brainwashing. They don't use chains, they use love, fear, and control. When someone joins a cult, they often feel they found a family, a higher purpose, or spiritual awakening. But behind that warmth is a carefully designed system of psychological conditioning. Cults isolate their followers from the outside world. They create an us versus them mentality. They use confession sessions, sleep deprivation, repetitive chanting, and total dependence on the leader. Bit by bit, critical thinking is replaced with blind loyalty. Members begin to censor their own thoughts and even their emotions because questioning becomes betrayal. Perhaps the most chilling part? Many cult survivors say they chose to stay. That's the paradox of brainwashing, the illusion of free will. You believe you're making your own choices, but those choices have already been shaped by someone else. 5. Military and political manipulation. Governments have long understood the power of psychological conditioning. Propaganda is, in many ways, a form of mass brainwashing. During wars, regimes use repetition, slogans, and emotional triggers to align millions of minds toward a single narrative. When repeated often enough, even lies start to feel like truth. Nazi Germany used relentless propaganda to turn ordinary citizens into loyal servants of an ideology built on hate. Post-war communist regimes in China and North Korea used similar tactics, controlling education, rewriting history, and creating a cult of personality around leaders like Mao Zedong and Kim Il-sung. Every poster, every song, every speech served one purpose: to keep the population in a constant state of belief. In the modern age, digital platforms have amplified this process. Social media algorithms reward emotional reactions: fear, anger, outrage, the same emotions that make the human mind vulnerable. In a sense, today's screens are the new tools of mass persuasion. And most people don't even realize how much their worldview has already been programmed. 6. Modern methods of subtle brainwashing. Today, brainwashing rarely looks like interrogation rooms or prison camps. It happens in subtler psychological ways through marketing, media, and social engineering. Advertisers use repetition, emotional association, and scarcity to shape consumer desires. Influencers and ideologues use parasocial trust to reprogram what audiences believe is true. The more time you spend inside a specific digital echo chamber, the more your thoughts align with it, and the harder it becomes to think independently. Tech companies understand this very well. Every notification, color, and sound on your phone is designed to trigger dopamine, forming a loop of dependency. You might think you're scrolling freely, but your brain is being conditioned with every swipe. This is the modern evolution of brainwashing, not to destroy the self, but to guide it without resistance. Not to imprison the body, but to shape attention. And attention in the digital age is the most valuable form of control. 7. Psychological signs of brainwashing. How do you know if someone, or even you, is being brainwashed? The symptoms can be subtle but deeply revealing. You stop questioning information that confirms your group's beliefs. You feel guilt or fear when disagreeing with authority. Your identity becomes tied to a movement, ideology, or person. Independent thought feels dangerous or disloyal. You begin to police your own thoughts before others do. These are warning signs of a controlled mind, and they can appear anywhere, in politics, religion, fandoms, even relationships. The techniques remain the same, only the context changes. 8. Defending the mind. Breaking free from brainwashing is painful but possible. It requires self-awareness, exposure to conflicting perspectives, and rebuilding independent thought. Former cult members describe it as waking up from a dream where every truth felt certain, until it wasn't. Education and critical thinking are the strongest shields. Understanding how manipulation works makes you far less vulnerable to it. If you can analyze the method, the message loses its power. The key is not to reject belief, but to make sure your beliefs are chosen, not installed. One of the best defenses is emotional regulation, because fear and anger are the gateways of control. When you stay calm, you think clearly. When you think clearly, you remain free. 9. Ethical reflections. The study of brainwashing forces us to ask a dark question. If humans can be programmed, who decides what programming is, right? Governments, religions, and corporations all use influence. Some call it education, others call it marketing or patriotism. Where is the line between persuasion and control? Perhaps brainwashing isn't only a tool of the wicked. Perhaps it's embedded in human nature, the desire to belong, to believe, to obey. We all crave certainty, and those who understand that craving can shape civilizations. 10. Conclusion: the invisible war for your mind. The story of brainwashing is not confined to the past. Continues today. Every time someone manipulates emotion to replace truth, every time a narrative is repeated until it becomes a reality. The battlefield has shifted from interrogation rooms to news feeds, from prison walls to screens. The tools have evolved, but the purpose remains the same: to control what you think, by controlling what you feel. So, the next time a message makes you angry, afraid, or full of devotion, pause for a moment. Ask yourself, who benefits from my emotion? That single question might just be your first act of freedom. Candle: in the end, brainwashing isn't about erasing minds. It's about writing stories inside them. The question is, who's holding the pen?